This is Rob Tebbutt for ID Boxing. Delighted, as always, to be joined by Lupa Suliai, La Uli Ole Malia Toa, Joyce-Parker. We're here in Morecambe, of all places. Joe, always a pleasure. Why might we?
I am very good. I am very good. I am.
Well, you look very good. We've caught up all over the world. This is the first time we've caught up in Morecambe Bay.
Morecambe Bay.
Nice little surroundings here.
You know what? It's nice here. I like Morecambe Bay. I've made it my home. Well, my second home. You know, there's New Zealand, Samoa. I've spent some time in England, in Vegas. But Morecambe Bay, it's like another home for me, you know. And I got the gym set up here, camp set up. Tyson's been very generous in giving us his gym to use. Nice big house to rent for the camp, and his whole team. You know, so I'm here with Andy, chef, brother flying in. Got my parents coming fight week. They're all coming to Morecambe Bay. Morecambe Bay is where it's at.
Morecambe Bay is where it's at, and also it's where Tyson Fury is, and I don't want to be late for training, so we're going to try and skim through this as quick as we can, because I don't fancy him being upset with me when we turn up later. So you're fighting Joe Joyce.
Yeah.
You sign with Boxer, you go over to Boxer and Sky Sports, now you're fighting on BT.
Yeah.
Bit of a surprise to a lot of people, but Andy's told me, and you've mentioned yourself, that was the fight that you really, really wanted. Why is that?
That's the fight I wanted because it's the best fight out there for me at this time. When you look at the heavyweight division, a lot of fighters are busy, and a lot of fighters don't want to fight. And he was always calling for the fight to happen. You know, we prematurely announced it on BT at Tyson's fight with White. Even though it wasn't done, it wasn't a done deal. There was no contracts, but you know the negotiations dragged on for long. You know, it took ages to lock in a fight, and we know what it takes to make a fight happen. We've been involved in a few big fights, you know, so we know what it takes to make it happen, but this just dragged on for too long. Terms kept changing, negotiations kept going on and on and on. So we thought, I thought with myself and David Higgins and Andy that we're going to go sign with Sky because we have a relationship from the past. They're very honest to deal with, and they're going to look after us and make us their fighter. But one thing we did say to them as soon as we signed was, please try and make the Joe Joyce fight happen. Whatever you do, make it happen. And that's what they did. So everyone came together. In the end, everyone came together. Sky, Boxer, you know, BT and Frank Warren, and now we're fighting on BT.
How difficult a fight is this? You mentioned it, you boxed Usyk-Joshua, and even after you lost that, you went straight into the Dillian Whyte fight, kind of no soft touches, but it seems to me like this is the most difficult fight there for you outside of the champions.
This is the most difficult fight. I mean, Joyce is one of those fighters that people don't want to fight, and he's been avoided because he's very dangerous. You know, and we could see with what he's done with his opponents, you know, he just chases them down, big engine, you know, pressure, throws a lot of punches. And a lot of people don't like to deal with that. But I do. I love a challenge.
Outside, boom. That's there.
Yeah.
And you got to get over that shoulder. So it's got to be there. And then,
Yeah.
and shoulder to me.
Okay.
Boom. That. You got to get over that shoulder. So it's not going down here. It's got to be there.
We've seen recently Joe Joyce, you know, he's, by his own admission, not the most difficult fighter to hit, but he has that engine. He keeps going and he's relentless. We've seen in the past Andy Lee say to you, you know, we need that dog out of you. We need you to kind of fight 3 minutes of every round. Mean intentions. Do you have to win this fight by knockout? Do you think that's the best way for you to proceed against Joe Joyce?
So a knockout would be great, but I think just going in there and executing the plan and owning him and winning in good fashion. There's no point winning and making it a boring fight and just points and tip-tap here and there. Nah, get in there and get amongst it and mix it up. You know, there's a way of fighting this guy, and I think Andy Lee has got the perfect plan. And it's not just about boxing and moving. There's a lot of other factors that come into play.
Have you spent any time around him? I know, like, through the kind of the Vegas time, and I know he was with Salas and you were with Kevin Barry, but I'm assuming there's been some times where you've been around each other.
There was only one time we were in the gym at the same time. You know, he was in Kevin Barry's gym in Henderson, Vegas, but didn't do any sparring, didn't really watch each other. Was just, oh, hey, what's up? How's it going? Good to see you. But there was no real, you know, he wasn't watching me and I wasn't watching him, and I didn't even think that he would be an opponent in the future.
What is it for you now? I mean, you were New Zealand's first ever heavyweight champion. You've been in big fights over here on pay-per-view. You've been in big fights all over the world. What is it for you now? Is it to become a 2-time world heavyweight champion? Is it the big money fights? Is it kind of a bit of both? What drives Joyce-Parker at this stage of your career?
Being 2-time world champion will be, that'll be another tick, you know, another goal. But that's further down the track. You know, it's good to have a goal and something to aim towards, but the goal right now is to be present and enjoy the whole, because sometimes in camp you don't enjoy it because it's hard work and you're thinking about something else and your mind's occupied here and there. But this time I want to enjoy it and be present, enjoy the training, the company that I have leading into the fight, enjoy the whole thing, enjoy the fight itself, smash this guy to bits and then move on to the next one. It's all about the journey now. I know, and again, the two-time world champion is up there. That's the goal, but just enjoy that pathway to get there, and make the most of it, because you're not going to get these years back. No one is.
Absolutely. Moving on, we've mentioned his name there, your ex-opponent Anthony Joshua, of course, lost to Oleksandr Usyk again out in Saudi Arabia a couple of weekends ago now. What did you make of the fight?
I thought he did his best, and his best wasn't good enough on the night against someone like Oleksandr Usyk with the skill, the movement, the speed, mixing it up and down. It was just when someone executes a plan and does it very well, it's nice to watch, and that's what Oleksandr Usyk did.
With Joshua, a lot of talk was about kind of him having to change for the fight, him having to get Robert Garcia in, having to be the old Joshua, so to speak. You fought the old Joshua. Yeah. Do you think that there's been a development? Do you think he's changed as a fighter since you boxed him?
I feel he has changed a bit from the beginning with the sort of the relentless going forward, chasing him down, just, if I could say, what's the word, like owning his opponents. In the beginning, he did do that, right? Is that fair to say? But then he sort of got into the, boxing and moving and just being a bit more smart. And of course, that's what you want to do, is to box and hit, don't get hit back. But that old Joshua was the one that everyone, I don't know, just captured everyone's attention, just because of, chasing people down and knocking them out and getting them out of there.
Anthony Joshua, after the fight, I think, raised some eyebrows, should we say, with his post-fight speech, rant, whatever you want to call it. What did you make of what he said after the fight?
Listen, a lot of, emotions were high, and it's just one of those things where he just switched, and there's no real. I know a lot of people say that he shouldn't have done this, and should have done that. It happened, Just got to take it, and just hope he's all good.
You've never done that, but you've lost big fights. I mean, the Anthony Joshua fight where you were world champion, you were no longer world champion. What's it like when you lose a fight on that magnitude, that scale? How difficult is it to control your emotions?
As a fighter or as a person, it's just one of those things where you have to, if you win the fight, be happy and enjoy. If you lose the fight, be happy for whoever won the fight. It's just boxing, and it's sportsmanship, and it's just being a good person, So even though I lost the fight, I don't like losing. I don't like losing to Joshua, or I didn't even like losing to White, back to back. But you gotta accept it on the day. And there's always, that goal of I can beat them in the future if I get the chance again. But just on that day, you weren't good enough, and who cares?
If you beat Joe Joyce, you become mandatory challenger with the WBO, of course, the title that you once held. What fight would you rather have? Oleksandr Usyk for the belts, or Anthony Joshua, a rematch with him?
And Oleksandr Usyk for the belts. It's always nice to fight, and get revenge on the losses that you have. But if you have the opportunity to fight for the belts, go for it, 100%.
How would you fight like Oleksandr Usyk that maybe Anthony Joshua didn't fight him in the two fights he had?
It's easy for me to say now, sitting here, it's easy for me to say I'll do this and do that, but it's a lot different, and it's a lot harder when you're in the ring with someone like that, who presents a lot of, challenges and skill. But I know deep down, I back myself 100% I'll beat anyone if I get the chance. I'm going to beat Joyce first, twice. I have to beat him first in September, and then I got a rematch and beat him again in December, then I'm free to fight anyone.
How does that change your preparations? Having rematch clauses and having to have that in contracts, does that change your preparations? Does that affect your mentality at all?
No. Having a rematch clause is, listen, he's not even champion, so he shouldn't have a rematch clause. But it was like it was one of those things where they weren't going to make the fight happen if it wasn't in place. I don't need a rematch clause. For the Joshua fight, I didn't need a rematch clause because I backed myself, and I back myself now.
Do you think that shows a weakness on their behalf?
I think it shows a little weakness. Because the first time we negotiated with them, they didn't even care about a rematch clause because I didn't look the best in the first Chisora fight. Then all of a sudden, after the second one, they wanted a rematch clause. It shows weakness, and it shows that there's little doubts that they think they might lose.
We mentioned his name here. Your big mate, Tyson Fury, big and very close to him, and obviously in stature. He announced his return from retirement. I think we were all kind of expecting his return, but a great move to see the big man back in the sport.
It's always, Tyson still got a lot to give. So when he did announce his retirement, I wasn't really sure why he did that. And I guess it's just him as a person, you know. Sometimes he says this or says that, but ultimately he's just going to do whatever he wants to do, and that's to continue fighting. He's still got a lot to give. He's only, 34 years old. And he looked good in this last fight. And he's training hard every day, so why not continue fighting? I know there's always that risk of losing your undefeated record, and you know, you're not in that little, because there's only a little group of people who are top who haven't lost, you know. So, but I think he wants you know, if that fight with Usyk is to be made, he wants to be paid for it.
What a massive fight that would be, Oleksandr Usyk versus Tyson Fury for all the marbles at heavyweight. I'm not going to ask you who you think wins because I know that you're very close with Tyson. But how does the fight play out? Do you see Tyson using his height and his weight, kind of manhandling him? We just had Andy Lee say that he would like to see Tyson outbox him and keep it long. How do you see the fight playing out? You know Tyson very well. How do you think he'd approach it?
Did Andy say he wants him to see him box him and move? Yeah, he can box him and move with the height and reach advantage. Right, he can just stand here and just pick him off. But Usyk is a very smart fighter, you know. There's many ways, you know, we've spoken to Tyson, there's many ways that he can beat him. I think purely with the size advantage and the height and reach and then the weight behind him, you know, Usyk can do his best, but I think it'll be done before 8 rounds.
Okay, well, Joe, always a pleasure catching up with you in sunny Morecambe Bay as opposed to wherever else. It's not quite sunny today, but it's okay. Before I let you go, I know you're getting good at these, so I want you to show me how good you've been getting. I want you to look into that very nice, expensive camera there, and I want you to tell Joe Joyce what he's in for on September the 24th. I want WWE-style Joseph Parker for this one.
WWE style. This camera.
That camera.
Let me think about it. What should I say to him? I don't know what to say.
What do you think is going to happen on September the 24th, Joe? Probably start there, I think.
Yeah, September 24th, Joe Joyce is going to get a good beating. You know, he's picked the wrong fight. He thinks that he can walk me down and get me out of there, but you're wrong. You're going to get smashed to bits because you're a lump. You know, he's a nice guy, but nice guys don't always win.
Well, you're a nice guy as well, but we'll wait and see what happens.
I'm not a nice guy anymore.
Is that Andy? Is that Kronk influence? But Joe Parker, always a pleasure. Thanks very much for speaking to ID Boxing. Fa.
Pass it forward.